All right, so hello everybody, and welcome to episode 70 of the SparkCast. Joining us today is Mark Bryan of
Hello,
Spark, so uh,
of the Spark.
of the Spark. Yes. So we have a little bit of an announcement to make. I believe you guys are going to make the same announcement tomorrow.
Oh
The
yeah,
SparkShare has gone live, the version 1.0.
very cool.
And for those of you who don't know, SparkShare is a community creation by Psycho Killer. He's not actually a Psycho Killer. Who,
Misleading name.
yeah,
I was expecting him to be a psycho killer. I was pretty sad when I found out he was just a regular, awesome guy.
he just happens to know how to do a lot of computer programming, mostly in Java and stuff. So he has created a way so even in offline mode for PC users, they can share their content, not only levels, but also like assemblies, or even in the process of allowing this, you can also do the custom image importing just straight through
Hmm.
selecting which picture you want while you're doing the upload. So
Yeah.
that's a big thing. So that'll help, especially with schools when they get the offline version of Spark that will also work on Windows 7. It's my understanding.
Oh, the desktop build version that our
Yes.
team's working on. Yeah, that would be something that would work on. We're pretty sure it would work on Windows 7 because it wouldn't connect to any services or anything. So it wouldn't connect online. So yeah,
So hooray for that. That's big
that's a
news.
whiles away. That's a while. Our thing's a whiles away. The desktop version we're building, and that's mainly just an easier version for schools to download.
And for people who have Windows 7 and haven't upgraded to Windows 10 for some
Yeah,
reason.
that's true.
But still big news for SparkShare, and this is 1.0, and there will be more features coming. I'm sure that he'll be more than happy to talk to you about what SparkShare can do beyond what we were able to discuss here. I know he has some other plans for expanding SparkShare as well, so this is just the beginning.
Yeah, he'll take over the world with it.
Or at least Team Dakota. He'll take over Team Dakota with it first, and then the
That's
world.
true. It's true.
So
You
the
might
other
see us replaced by psychos one day.
that may or may not be Psycho Killers, yes.
Yeah.
The other big news, there's something like of a Game Jam announcement last week. We talked
Yeah.
briefly about it with Thomas, but so what were your thoughts? Like, what were your impressions of the first week so far?
Um, it's really cool. There's a game jam going on. I can't wait to participate in it. Oh wait, I am participating in it. It's
It's
the
happening. No.
the really cool thing is the amount of team ups we've seen so far, and the amount of new people it's attracting. Also, and also the amount of people who kind of moved on to other things and then came back to Spark to kind of pitch in for this. So we're seeing a lot of different teams forming, some larger teams, some two-man teams, some one-man groups too. I think there's some people who, have been working on larger projects that this is giving them the incentive to really polish that up and submit that. That was kind of part of our intent. That's why we wanted to allow previous unpublished works is to get the things that people might have, worked on off and on to kind of give them a kick in the rear to get it to a really nice point and submit that.
Well, back to the point you made about the big teams, or just teams in general, um, we actually have the list right here of the teams that are actually working together, and it's a pretty impressive list. We have an average recon in Project Sparker, and we both know Project Sparker, he was the one who made Infinity, as well as the Hair Physics and a bunch of other
Hmm.
awesome creations, and an average recon who made the Exo Tower Defense and what were the other cool creations he made? Was he the
He
one
made
Minecraft?
turning on the TV. Yeah, he made Minecraft, but he made turning on the TV,
Previous
which was
previous
that was
Game
team.
Jam.
Yeah, that was Team Dakota's favorite from the Ford Game Jam.
Right, that was the Rube Sparkberg one, right?
Yeah, that was our favorite Rubes Sparkberg one. That was like that would have won the Critics' Choice Award if we had Critics' Choice.
And then there's another group, BizTone and Mista Wicket, who I'm not familiar with. They posted they were working together on the .com forums, and that they were
Miss
also. Hmm?
Mr. Wicket, that's a member who we talk to often on YouTube. So they kind of stick to our YouTube channel, but they're working on something that is kind of very similar to Phantom Dust.
Okay. I'm not familiar with that, but I'll find out eventually, I'm sure.
It's a really crazy, cool concept that melds a bunch of genres.
Well, that explains the need for enemy AI, UI, enemy AI, user interface, menus, HUD, and optimization of coding. And so
Yeah,
they're actually actively looking for another collaborator as well. Uh,
yep. It has all the things.
all the things. Then there's a sort of a mega collaboration of Danker Pie, Wart Andrew, and Nightmare UK.
That
And
is, that's like a corporation collaboration. It's like the merging of Dell, Asus, and like Acer all into one thing.
yeah, so Dagger Pie, he did a was it a top four creation for the second Game Jam. Wart
Hmm.
Andrew was international and a judge, so he couldn't actually participate in either two previous Game Jams. And Nightmare UK international, and he made a great game, which was the Road Rash game.
Yeah.
So that's a pretty impressive collaboration right there.
Hmm. Except for that word Andrew character, he's the weakest link. I think.
No, I
I don't think
definitely
he's made
agree.
too much.
I definitely agree. Um, then there's another powerhouse combination of Defco 70 and Zeevils. Defco
Yeah.
is best known from being Defco and us gloating about him on the stream whenever he does anything. And Zeefels, who made Ragnarok on Spark, which is in and of itself impressive in its own right.
It's the game I've sat down and played the longest time in Project Spark. I sat down one Sunday, I think the Sunday after it came out, and I played the thing for hours, like an hours really.
Well, as you should.
It's really good. Yeah, Ragnarok is a really great game. It fits the exact need of the game that I'm looking for. I just get lost in it. So that's a great team up too.
We'll see actually what they're working on. I think they're working on a steampunk game, but we'll find out.
Hmm.
Um, and the final group that I know of, as far as which members are in them, is Doobie Snacks, Master Gamer, and Rust Plague. Doobie Snacks, you guys voted as having the best creation since launch.
Yep. So you have a guy who's amazing at modeling, Russ Plague. You have a guy who's amazing at UI, Master Gamer, and then you have a guy who's amazing at mechanics, Doobie Snacks. That'll be another cool one to watch. The thing I'm most interested in, most looking forward to, is the people who are going to come out of nowhere. Because every game jam that always happens, there's people who just come out of nowhere and kind of blow us away.
Well, I was going to get to those. Well, first, there's a rumored team. I'm not exactly sure who's part of it, but I know Lucid Stew and Kill and Joke have teams or on the same team, but they're another uh, quality duo who may or may not be working together or may or not have
Hmm.
more people on their teams. But
There's also, I believe there's a team up of Swift Arrow and Champion KG, I think.
well, I know that Champion KG has made something for Swift Arrow, but I'm not sure how actively they are engaging in collaboration.
Got it.
It is a collaboration because he did something for him, but I'm not sure if it's ongoing or if it was just that one thing.
Got it. So here's a fun thing is my computer just gave me a warning that it's going to shut down in 14 minutes and 50 seconds.
So this is the abbreviated Sparkcast.
Well, it'll restart, so we might have to go offline for like 2 minutes
That's pretty funny.
while my computer just decides to go crazy.
Well, well, really quickly then, we're going to go through the creators who are currently working on projects I know of and those who are looking for teams, because these are also still well-known names in the community. There's Area Code. I'm actually not familiar with him, so this is alphabetical, so I have seen him post on the forums before, but he is looking for more people to work with him. There's Deleted, who made Vector Shadow,
Yeah.
and Cam K. Hunter, who made In a Moment and a variety of other really good games. Like, he's really progressed his skill set. Uh, Crossladen, Krausladen? Uh, anyway, he's looking for more people to work on his project. Neon Spark is working for more people to work on his project. Sphinx is looking for more people to work on his project. And Swift Arrow, who you mentioned earlier, is also looking for more collaborators. Those are the people who are currently working on projects and maybe would welcome help if you were to offer it to them.
I also know of Morrison Monster. He's another one who's working on his own thing, and there were two others. There's quite a few others, but two others like who publicly post. Quite a few people who've communicated with us that they're entering. So we're definitely going to have a. I can already see just from the people who've talked to us that there's already going to be a nice group of people submitting. So I'm just thinking about the people who haven't even reached out to us and all those people who are kind of developing things.
Oh, that reminds me, Holy Light Rider. I forgot to move him up from looking.
Yeah,
He's
that's right.
making. He's moved on to starting his own project. So he won the second game jam. So
Yeah.
if anybody would want to work with him, I strongly recommend reaching out to him. 'Cause he's a really good guy. He does have a odd time zone though, because he's off the coast of Africa.
That's right.
And so going through the community members who I know of who are looking for teams, so for teams who already exist or maybe people who want to look for other people to team up with, there's a really good list of Champion KG, uh, Danny Ball Sub, Drifta H, Ethnir Tito, Fire Emerald, Photeth, and Wacko. And the interesting part about this list to me is most of these people are really solid at coding.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that would be like what most people were looking for, but it seems there's an abundance of coders who are available to help on other projects.
So if you're not good at coding and you just like designing things and coming up with the ideas, you're in luck.
Yeah.
There's a large community of people, coders, willing and able to probably join in projects that they find interesting as well.
So with 1 week down, what would you expect people to start doing this week in order to improve have the best chance of completing something by the next 6 weeks?
I'd say so in the first week, formulating the teams and just coming up with ideas is probably good. This next week, which is week kind of 1 to 2, so last week is 0 to 1. Now you're in week 1, week 1 to 2. Probably start white boxing out ideas and just starting to make some of the core features of the game. I would work on getting the fun stuff done first, and playing around with it, making sure the mechanics feel fun. That's kind of the most important part. So, um, as long as you are starting to just play around with ideas, putting them down, then you're already in a good place. I mean, the great thing about this being a 7 week process is you could really come together. Honestly, you could spend 5 weeks of planning really and not even make anything in Project Spark, and then the last week or two you actually finally put everything together because you've made something that's really nice, concise, very simple, but incredibly fun. So if you're going for an epic creation, you probably want to start sooner rather than later. But if you're going for an arcade submission, then that's something that you could probably, if you have a great idea, get together in a much shorter amount of time.
Right, because in previous game jams they were only what, like 3 or 4 weeks long each,
Yeah, usually I think 3.5 weeks.
and this time there's roughly double that, if not more.
Yep.
So, and the quality of the game jam submissions in the past were also rather high.
Mm-hmm.
So with this, I can see your point that you could wait halfway through. However, I'm more of agreeing with Corey here in saying prototype early and fail early. Prototype as much as you can and see what works. Like, rather than just thinking about it, actually start getting stuff down and saying, is this, like you said, is this fun? Because you might have a mechanic that sounds interesting where you build a tower out of goo, but if you can't make that tower out of goo actually fun to play.
Yep, that's true. Actually, on the flip side of things, a recommendation I might make is if you're feeling pretty ambitious, get the boring stuff done first, and then move on to the fun stuff. And by the boring stuff, I mean, all right, so I'm subjectively saying boring stuff because for different people, different things are boring. Some people find the design process and level building boring. Some people find the coding boring. Some people find UI boring. So, for me, for instance, the boring stuff would be making all the menus and all the on-screen UI and the dialogues. So, if I kind of got rid of that stuff first, then it gives me more time to focus on like, and by the boring stuff I mean the stuff that just needs to be in there, but it's not as fun to make. Then I can focus on the fun stuff, the actual playable things that I know the player's going to be spending the most time with, and that they need to have a good time with. So then I can spend the most time tweaking that. If I get the boring stuff out of the way now, then I don't have to really worry about that. That's kind of the boring stuff that is great for polish, but not necessary for enjoyment.
So I've heard it expressed in a few different areas that it's best to spend 20% of your time on 80% of the results, and then 80% of your time on the 20% of the results.
Mm-hmm.
So you'll spend a
But
short
just
amount.
make sure it's the right 20% and the right 80%. As in, like, don't spend 80% of your time on something that it's not really even a core part of the game. Um, but spend 80% of your time on the thing that is the core of the game.
Right. So most of your time is going to be spent on the polishing and making everything look nice, but maybe only 20% of your time, like, what would that be, like 2 weeks, would be the actual core of the game, whereas everything else is just making everything else look polished, fun, enjoyable.
Mm-hmm.
And also, keep in mind, as you're building this, each mechanic you add, you are going to have to explain to the people that you're playing the game how to use it.
Yes, you will. Having, like, just coming up, when you first come up with your idea, come up with how to explain it too. Okay, so think about it. Like, the best way to think about your game is think about someone's holding, all right, think about your game is actually in stores and someone picks up a box of it. They turn it around and they look at the back of the box. And typically, if you ever look at the back of a game box, you have like three pictures. So it's like one picture here, one there, and then like three taglines of do this thing, which is cool, do that thing, which is cool, and do this thing. And so, like, when you're coming up with, the things to focus on, first come up with like what are those three things that are like easy to explain in a sentence, and like focus on that. Don't go really complicated. And second, when you find those few things that would kind of be on the back of the box, that's probably the things that you want to spend the most time on, because that's the kind of most important part. That's the draw of your game.
Definitely. Um, and the problem is if you can't explain to somebody how to use their mechanic or why you would want it, and have them, be able to sit through that explanation, it's almost as if that mechanic doesn't exist, or that mechanic doesn't exist to that person. So they won't be able to use it, and they won't be able to enjoy your game as a result.
Mm-hmm.
So think of ways to make sure that the person enjoys the tutorial, and that they're not just, my biggest pet peeve is all tutorial all at once, and then feels like you're playing through a rule book rather than playing a game before you can play the game, and then you forget all the rules by the time you get to the game. So,
Another thing to keep in mind. Oh, yay! Restarting in 4 minutes and 56 seconds.
okay.
Another thing to keep in mind is, sometimes I'll see people just put all of the controls kind of off on this menu. Like, you hold down a right bumper and it brings up the kind of the control menu, which that's totally fine to have that in game, but don't have that as the only reliant factor. Is this is how people learn how to play the game, by bringing up this menu option, because there's so many things, like, and I know this from building stuff and talking with people who build things. No one really checks the menus. Like, they don't check the menus unless they really need to check the menus. So they're probably not going to check what the control scheme is and just try and figure it out themselves. And if they don't figure it out themselves in like 5 seconds, then they're already kind of at that frustrated point. So I mean, look, think about like any game that you've recently played and the beginning of the game. If you've played a game that began and had zero tutorial whatsoever, then we're talking about Minecraft, because there's no other game out there that has zero tutorial whatsoever when you start.
That's a good point. Because even like something like Dr. Mario, which is really easy to play, or Tetris, they had like some kind of tutorial in there at the very start of it, at least the first run through.
Mm-hmm.
But let's just use the example of the one game that I really don't want to use as an example, because they did one thing really well. Swordman and Conquer, where they showed the controls right up front.
Yep.
And it was simple controls. You didn't have to remember press right bumper and hold Y when you want to do a special move or whatever. It was always just, when this meter's filled, press Y. That was the extent of the combat in that game. So keep the
Mm-hmm.
mechanics simple at first, at least. And if you're going to add more complicated mechanics that someone wouldn't know right off the bat, introduce those throughout the game. Don't just introduce everything that they'll ever have all at once.
The other thing I'd add on top of that is, yes, there is such a thing as too much handholding, as Meatloaf Muffin brings up. And if you feel like it's gonna take the first 5 minutes of what you're building to like bring them through the tutorial, that already means it's probably too complicated, especially if you're building something that is probably going to be 20 to 30 minutes in length. If the first 1/4 of the game is just spent explaining it to you, that's too much time. So when you're thinking through the tutorial, that's also when you come up right against like, oh, this is actually pretty complicated explaining all this. Okay, maybe I need to pare this down, and maybe it doesn't make sense to have like this crazy power that does something interesting only on Tuesdays.
Right. So simplify it if you can't explain it simply.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So how about we take an intermission while your computer resets?
That sounds wonderful.
All right. So we will be back in a few moments after
After an
maybe
obligatory restart of my computer.
maybe a nuclear explosion will happen in the meantime. We'll never see him again, but this isn't
Never know.
2077, so less likely of that happening. But we will be back in a moment with
Mm-hmm.
part two.
Exactly. Part 2.
See you in a bit.